capsules and tablets just for TalkTalk customers.
We're gonna be late!
Which means I'm ready for Christmas already.
Kath!
It's all about timing, you see.
Coming, dear!
This Christmas, treat your home to amazing TalkTalk mobile deals, like the Samsung Galaxy S5, just $13.75 a month for 6 months. It's our best price ever. But hurry, half-price deals end on Monday, so go to talktalk.co.uk/mobile now. Contract and conditions apply.
The TV was connected to the extension lead, and the lead was connected to the hairdryer, and the dryer was connected to the heater, and the heater was connected to the straighteners, and they all were connected to one socket, and the socket was connected to the house fire, and the fire killed 3 people before we put it out. Attach too many appliances to one socket, and it could cause an overload, and that could cause a fire. Fire kills. You can prevent it.
When you're homeless at Christmas, cold, hungry, lonely, you can only watch as people shop and meet for parties. But a place at Crisis at Christmas could be the start of a whole new life. For £21.62p, our homeless guests receive 3 hot meals, fresh clothes, a health check, plus support to leave the streets for good. Homelessness has been rising and Crisis needs your help more than ever before. So please, go to crisis.org.uk and bring someone in from the cold. Thank you.
2 extra hot skinny lattes.
Leave your skinny latte to go.
Doors to manual and cross-check.
And take in some relaxing cafe culture in the sunshine. Fly from London Southend to 5 European destinations from $29.99 one way with Flybe. Flying to Rennes, Groningen and Munster Osnabrück from the 5th of June and Antwerp and Caen Normandy from the 3rd of July. Groningen from $34.99. Visit flybe.com. Credit card charges apply.
Christmas is almost here. The streets are bustling with shoppers. People are wrapping their presents and there's that special festive buzz in the air. For homeless people, though, it can be a particularly cruel time. Christmas on the streets is lonely, dangerous and cold. For just £21.62p, you can reserve a place for someone at Crisis at Christmas, giving them a hot meal, fresh clothes, somewhere safe to stay, and the chance to move off the streets for good. So please go to crisis.org.uk now and help someone in from the cold this Christmas.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With China Eastern Airlines, making business happen from Heathrow to Shanghai direct.
What do we got? 7 minutes before 9, 7 minutes to Nigel Farage, exclusively on LBC with Phone Farage. A cheap over-the-counter painkiller could add years to your life. 12 years if you take regular doses of ibuprofen. In tests, the drug would seem to hold back the ageing process as well as helping fight certain diseases. It can be used every day by some people to treat inflammation, pain and fever. But it could, I hope you stress this, be the key to developing a long-sought anti-aging drug. This comes from the Institute, the Buck Institute for Research on Aging in California. Now, before you all start racing down to the chemist to buy it or racing to your medicine chest and trying to prise the lid off and start taking it, let's get some proper medical advice. Dr. Lawrence Buckman is ex-chairman of the General Practitioners Committee of the BMA, that's the British Medical Association. He's a GP practicing in North London. And he joins me now. Doctor, do I start taking this every day? Good morning.
Good morning. It's been known for a long time that ibuprofen and related drugs make a difference to a variety of inflammatory processes, and some elements of aging are thought to be due to inflammation. So to that extent, it's not news. Ibuprofen, except that the studies are getting more positive towards it doing various things to you. Ibuprofen and the same family of drugs are not all completely safe. They're not completely safe if you're an asthmatic, because they can provoke asthma, and they make you bleed internally and can cause stomach ulcers. But assuming you're none of those, I would have thought ibuprofen was an interesting drug to at least consider taking, certainly once research is a bit clearer.
So for my listeners now, what would you advise them to do? Watch and wait?
I think I would be watching and waiting rather than consuming. Certainly don't rush out and take it if you've ever had stomach ulcers, bad indigestion, or are an asthma sufferer, because you may find yourself getting much worse. It's probably not a great idea if you've got high blood pressure, because it can interfere with blood pressure pills. If you're none of those, it's up to you. I wouldn't be rushing out and taking it, but I'd certainly be watching the news pretty closely.
Lastly, what would need to be the definitive research, Doctor, so we'd know exactly where we are?
We'd need to know that taking it long term was not only safe, but was likely to make a proven difference to a large population. What we need now is a big population study that deliberately does it for years, that says, well, this group of people took it and lived longer and this group of people took it and didn't, or the other way around. Quite often you find when you do very big population studies, it's nowhere near as clear-cut as you thought it was going to be. So one big study would do it. More big studies would make it even more likely to be useful.
Dr. Lawrence Buckman, thank you. You're ex-chairman of the General Practitioners Committee of the BMA. You're a North London GP. Melissa, I'll talk to you in a moment about obesity, but as I've mentioned a couple of times, I had a great day yesterday. My thanks to everyone down at the London Borough of Lewisham and the great team, and I do mean this, the great teams there who were on the bins. As you know, if you listen to me, I'm happy to be a resident of Lewisham when it comes to my refuse collection. They are fantastic. And, of course, we decided anyway to go out on the bins with them with the Christmas rush coming. And then in today's papers, it says that some areas, not Lewisham, might move to monthly collections. You'd have to keep your bins, that's right, your bins for a month. Well, that's not on its way. We're going to bring you the full report from my round day on the rounds in next week. But here's a taste of what's to come when I went out on the bins.
How you going? All right? Good. I've got to do the jiggle. Show me how to do the jiggle so I can check there's not an engine in there or something like that. Here we go.
What's the toughest part of the job?
People spit at you and they talk rubbish to you.
Spit? Why would they spit at you? Let me take one of these bins and I'll give you a hand. Why would they spit at you?
Sometimes you block the road.
Hello, I'm Nick.
I just recognised. I thought, I know that fella.
So why'd you make tea for them?
2 or 3 years ago, deep snow on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And the young lad said, have you got a kettle of hot water?
Do you want me to take it?
They'll be halfway down the street.
No, I'm here. I'm helping. Don't you worry. Well, there we go.
My day on the bins next week. My thanks to Lewisham Borough Council for that. Melissa in Orpington, you're having the last word for now on obesity. Is it the same as a disability? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Hi. Yeah, I'd just like to say, I don't think... it can limit your capacity to move. However, when you classify it as a disability, it's almost like you're removing, by giving obese people this kind of label, it's like removing their responsibility to do something about their condition.
I think that's a really good point, and that means then that they don't think they need to address it. Melissa, I know you held on the line, you got your point across, and I'm really grateful to you. You've had the last word on that for now, at least, because coming up here after the news on LBC, exclusively, Phone Farage, UKIP leader Nigel Farage after the news.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, Australia's Prime Minister has described the murders of 8 children as heartbreaking and an unspeakable crime. The victims, aged from 18 months to 15 years, were found stabbed to death at a house in Cairns. A 34-year-old woman is being treated in hospital for injuries and is helping police with their inquiries. Nick has been speaking to Kate Leonard-Jones, a reporter in Cairns.
Their investigations are still ongoing. There was a man, there are reports that a man was seen in the front yard and they're speaking with him but say that he's not a suspect. They're just speaking with him. They're also speaking with the mother, who's in hospital but in a stable condition.
Women soldiers could be allowed to fight on the front line as soon as 2016. Research is being done to prove they can cope with the demands of a 6-month tour. Here's Defence Secretary Michael Fallon.
We have women now fighting in submarines. We have women flying fighter bombers. And if women want to join the army, I think their choice of unit should not be restricted. Selection really should be done on the basis of ability. Can they do the job?
The number of illegal immigrants trying to get into Britain has quadrupled according to latest figures. The Home Office says almost 12,000 attempts were made between April and July. Surveyors are predicting house prices in London will remain flat next year. It's as property analysts claim values in the capital have risen nearly £57,000 in the last 12 months. Plans for London's Garden Bridge over the Thames have been given the go-ahead. London Mayor Boris Johnson says the crossing will be an oasis of tranquility. A short time ago, the FTSE was up 54 at 65.20. LBC weather becoming dry with sunny spells for London and the southeast, but feeling cooler, highs of 12 degrees. Rain across southern England will clear, leaving sunny spells and some showers. Blustery and wet in the north as well as Scotland and Northern Ireland. Drier but breezy for Wales. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Eleanor Noakes.
The early morning freight train. That epic rumble makes me ornaments dance and my heart flutter. As your wondrous whistles and whines bring me closer to my sausage and egg McMuffin with pork from British Freedom Food Approved Farms and a free-range egg cradled in that toasty muffin. All before 10:30 a.m. First train to Skegness via Worksop. I love you.
It's 9 o'clock across the UK.
The woman's told, I'm sorry, if you want to breastfeed, madam, you must go to the ladies' room or whatever. Well, or perhaps sit in the corner or whatever it might be. I mean, you know, that's up to Clara. It's not an issue that I get terribly hung up about, but I know, particularly, Nick, people of the older generation feel awkward and embarrassed by it.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC. This is Phone Farage. UKIP leader Nigel Farage takes your calls with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. This is Phone Farage with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Only on LBC.
Good morning, this is Nigel Farage on LBC with Phone Farage. I'm taking your questions here for the next half an hour. If you want to get involved, here is how you do it. Call me on 0345 6060 973 or email nigelfarage@lbc.co.uk. And don't forget, you can also watch Phone Farage on our website, lbc.co.uk. So here's straight to our first caller, and it's Phil in Sidcup. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Thank you very much. You said in the past that you would do a deal with Ed Miliband to get into government. What would you ask for? And how can you possibly agree on his policy when you're so far apart ideologically?
I never said I'd do a deal with Ed Miliband. Never, ever, never. The fact that newspapers happen to write those headlines up says more about the press than it does about me. What I did intimate, Phil, was that I would do a deal with the devil, which of course got me in terrible trouble with letters being written in from people saying, how dare I say such a thing. Look, we are facing, in 4.5 months' time, the most uncertain general election that we've seen for many, many decades in this country. All the balls are up in the air, and that's chiefly because of the effect UKIP's had on politics. Either the Conservative or the Labour Party will emerge as the biggest party after that election. Just given our constitutional history and precedent, it is for that, you know, the monarch would expect the larger of the two parties to attempt to form either a formal coalition or some kind of support mechanism and deal where you can actually have a government there that can get a budget through Parliament. If we find ourselves, and it's an if, of course it is, but if we find ourselves in a position where we actually do hold the balance of power, whilst everybody thinks it's more likely that it's David Cameron that would need UKIP support, it's not absolutely impossible that it could be Ed Miliband. But I agree with you, Phil. You know, I disagree with almost everything Mr. Miliband stands for, and it wouldn't be easy.
But can I just ask you, but it's in your interest to see a Labour government, isn't it? Because if the Conservatives get in and give an in-out referendum on Europe...
Oh, we've heard all that before.
To vote no, please let me finish. And if the country vote to go out, then UKIP are finished. So surely it must be in your interest that Conservatives don't win, Labour do, so you can ensure that you can stay as UKIP leader and in the European Parliament and keep obviously getting the hype you're getting from the media?
I couldn't care less about being in the European Parliament. I couldn't care less about being UKIP leader. I couldn't care less about political parties. I'm not interested in any of this stuff. What interests me, these are all means to achieve an end. I got into politics from business, Phil, because I thought something had fundamentally gone wrong, namely that we'd given away our ability to govern our own country. And you only have to look at what happened just yesterday with judgments from the European Court on who we may or may not let into Britain, on how we have to treat overweight people. Wherever we look, we find we've lost the ability to govern ourselves. I want my country back. I want us to get back self-government, the ability to make our laws and control our borders. And if I have to do a deal with somebody that I otherwise wouldn't normally do, if it achieves that goal, I will do it.
So you're open to any offers, Mr. Farage?
I'm not open to any offers at all. It's actually that it's the other way round, isn't it? It will be somebody who needs numerically numbers in the House of Commons to get themselves into the position.
Who's more likely to make the call, Mr. Cameron or Mr. Miliband?
I don't know who's going to come. The biggest party at the next election.
You really don't. What's your sense? What's your sense?
I haven't got a clue.
Really?
I have not got a clue.
You referred to Europe, of course. That was the ruling of a British-Irish man whose Colombian wife now can gain access to this country, according to Europe. That was the one. The other ruling is that in some cases obesity is the same as a disability, and employers might have to make bigger doors, bigger chairs, more car parking spaces. You've been in industry. You know what that must have been like. How do you react to that if you're an employer?
Well, it's costly, isn't it? That's the point. Firstly, it's costly. Secondly, I was sort of musing coming in this morning that we'll see. We have disabled parking now, don't we, at supermarkets and even at certain big fast food. Wouldn't it be funny if McDonald's had a special bay for overweight people, so they could park straight outside? Look, I think that we view disability as being something that happens, unfortunately, to quite a lot of people, but through no fault of their own. A genetic problem, a horrible accident, mental problem, whatever. I mean, people don't choose to be disabled. Absolutely not. I think it is quite difficult in the case of overweight people to argue that that's a disability, because it seems to me that it is something, it may sound harsh, but it is something they can actually do something about. But the real point...
You think every fat person or obese person can do something about it?
Well, I mean, I think we all know that there are some rare exceptions, but I think in general terms, if people are overweight, I mean, if somebody's very overweight and facing a life-threatening operation, the surgeon says, look, lose a couple of stone, come back in 6 weeks and we'll do the operation. We understand that. We know how that works. So I think, firstly, it's difficult for me to see obesity as being a disability, a handicap, whatever word we choose to use. Secondly, doesn't it just illustrate the extent to which we don't govern our own country? We can't make these decisions. And if the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg rules on this, we say, OK, fine, we'll do it. The other judgment was very interesting.
This is the British-Irish man with the Colombian wife.
That's right. I thought what was really interesting was the reaction of the Prime Minister. He said he was disappointed. It's not good enough. I don't want a British Prime Minister to be disappointed. We should not be subject, in my view, to the rulings of these courts. We don't need it.
As a full stop, it's worth telling you, Nigel Farage, if the Europe is right, 64% of adults are overweight or obese in Britain, as is the entire England Rugby First 15, so they're all disabled.
This is BMI index, isn't it? And I'm not a doctor, but I'm not actually convinced the BMI index works for all measures. But as you say, you certainly wouldn't call the rugby boys.
Not to their face.
Now,
Shall we move on?
Yeah, the next caller, Robin in Herne Hill. Robin, I've been to Herne Hill this morning. In fact, I had a puncture in Herne Hill this morning and found a cab office next to Herne Hill train station. So I've had a good look at Herne Hill this morning. Good morning, Robin. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. I'm not happy about you taking £1.5 million from the European Union. I believe it was tried. You tried it 3 years ago without consulting people, and it produced Stuart Coleman left the party. And I think that there's a message gap, such as you don't make the most of things like nursing, for example. Taking 5,000 nurses from Spain and the Philippines, the party should be saying this is dreadful because it's affecting people in Spain and the Philippines, instead of getting you facing a twist on the M4. I think that you're not consulting people.
I'm getting a touch... Right. Oh, all right, Robin. Let's deal with the central message, I think, here, which is a story this week that UKIP's going to take £1.5 million from the European Union. Let me explain this. There are now European political parties funded by the European taxpayer, which of course means about a fifth of that is from the British taxpayer. These parties have been established, and nearly all of the parties that have been set up are pro-European Union and will use that money to propagate a pro-EU message. If UKIP doesn't join a European political party, then all of the money will go to the pro-EU side. By us forming one, we take some of their weapons away from them. The effect of UKIP doing this does not cost the taxpayer a single extra penny piece. If it did, we wouldn't do it. We're just trying, well, I was going to say, to get onto a level playing field. That, of course, won't happen when the European Union itself spends 1.5 billion euros every year in forms of advertising and promoting itself. So we are taking a bit of their money to fight back against them. And actually, Robin, that's the same principle that I've abided by since 1999, when I first took my seat in the European Parliament. I did it so that we could publicise what was going on there, build up the argument in Britain, and I think most commentators would agree that that strategy has been a success.
Come back to you, Robin.
Yes, but there's a whiff of, at the moment, the Greens are making traction on being the anti-establishment party, but they can't carry out their programme on GM foods, and because they're pro-EU. And as I keep saying on this programme, there's no centre-left anti-EU party. I mean, I could be on my way out because I want to be a PPC, and the PPC process, I don't want to go into that, is in a bit of stuck at the moment unless you've sat on Roger Bird's knee.
Well, that's nonsense, obviously, and we're by the middle of January we will have over 500 parliamentary candidates that have been assessed, vetted, police CRB checked, and adopted by parliamentary constituencies. So, Robin, if you've been disappointed by the process, if it hasn't worked out for you, I'm sorry, but generally we're making great strides in that direction.
Someone for whom the process did work out, of course, was your man down in Essex, who decided to use derogatory terms for Chinese, women, homosexuals and people from another part of the county. It was all down, apparently, to medication. You've experienced some pretty grave health threats in your time and conditions. Have you ever reacted adversely to medication, Mr. Farage?
No, I haven't found sedatives have had that effect on me, I have to say. I might have said a few things after other forms of medication that perhaps I shouldn't have done, but then again, we all have, haven't we? Look, you know, I am a bit sad.
Why are you sad?
Because Kerry Smith is a rough diamond. He's a council house boy from the East End of London, left school early, and talks and speaks in a way that a lot of people from that background do. We can pretend if we like.
So if you're from the council house,
hang on a second.
You say pufter, do you?
No. If you and your mates are going out for a Chinese, what do you say you're going for?
I honestly would not use the word chinky. Would you?
A lot of people would.
Would you?
No, but a lot of people would.
So you've never used that word?
I don't think I've ever used that word, but the point is this.
Why did you raise that?
The point is this. I feel a bit sorry for Kerry Smith because he's a genuine fella. I think even the Pufter comment, the next sentence he was saying how good another candidate was and the fact he was gay would be an asset to the party. I think he's had a tough time. However, he's not suitable to be a parliamentary candidate. All right, but I don't think we should be just. I think we're very snobbish in London about condemning people, perhaps for the colloquial language they use, particularly if it's not meant with really unpleasant intent.
But you said council house. He's a rough diamond from a council house background. Just to explore that a bit further. So that is where people use. I've got to say it one time, so apologies to listeners, but that is where people say chinky and pufter.
Well, Kerry himself said that he had used language that Del Boy used to use on Only Fools and Horses, and nobody objected then. Kerry Smith is not fit to be a parliamentary candidate. I don't think that in the comments he used, he meant malice. That's the only point I'm making.
Sitting in where you are yesterday, Nick Clegg, the Deputy Prime Minister on Call Clegg on LBC, said, and I'm paraphrasing, this really is the true face now of UKIP emerging. It's a group of men in suits, middle-aged men in suits, who shout a lot and are grumpy.
Thus spoke the man from Westminster School and vast wealth and the European College in Bruges. That's perhaps how he does look at it. If he looked a bit more closely, what he would see is that we had 7 women elected to the European Parliament in May this year without using all-female shortlists. They did it absolutely on merit, with no advantage given to them whatsoever. What he would see is a deputy chairman of the party in Suzanne Evans, who increasingly appears on LBC and elsewhere, and really, I think, brings great credit on the party. So, Nick can abuse us all he likes. I'm not going to return the compliment.
And just lastly on this, it does appear, Mr Farage, you do attract a number of unfortunate people who want to represent your party, who think that flooding is down to homosexuality.
Oh, please, Nick, this is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it is a high proportion, Mr Farage.
No, it's a very small proportion. And isn't it interesting that when the Baptist preacher...
I won't go through them all.
Hang on a second. When the Baptist preacher, who had been a Conservative for 20 years and made identical comments as a town councillor in Henley for the Conservative Party, was there any media coverage? Not a bit of it. He crossed the floor.
So is this a witch hunt?
Well, let me just explain something.
Sorry, go ahead.
He crossed the floor and joined UKIP.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And his comments were on the front page, top of the news programmes. It was interesting. During that month, when this emerged earlier this year, during that same month, there were 13 serving councillors for the Lib Dems, Tories and Labour Party who were arrested from racial violence to child pornography, and not one of those appeared in the national media. All I'm saying is...
It is a media witch hunt.
All I'm saying is that UKIP is treated slightly unfairly on this. Yes, of course we have people who do things and say things that are wrong. So do the other parties as well. We do not have a monopoly on stupidity, I promise you.
We move on.
OK, we move on to James in Finchley.
Oh, hi, Nigel. Hi, Nick.
Hello, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Right, yes, just about smoking. So when it comes to smoking, I can see two sides to the argument. My dad smoked, friends smoke. I don't see it as a huge or major concern considering pollution that we've got in our towns and cities. But as someone who's had cancer, do you not feel it's irresponsible to campaign for reintroducing something that could potentially contribute to or cause that?
This is the idea you want. I think you would bring smoking back in pubs. I believe, James, that grown-ups make choices. And yes, grown-ups should be informed, but they should be able to make choices. And I am pretty heartily sick of the state attempting to intervene in every aspect of our lives. I would like them to use a smoking term to butt out and leave us as grown-ups to make up our own minds.
James, a response from you?
But surely anything, and like kids being around smoking, for example, isn't a good idea in any capacity, whether that's near a pub or anywhere. Surely you'd agree with that?
Yeah, and kids being obese, kids being seriously overweight is a bad idea, and kids not taking enough exercise is a seriously bad idea, and kids living next door to trunk routes with huge amounts of diesel and petrol fumes is not a good idea. And actually, I suspect, James, as the next couple of years go on, we will begin to think that actually traffic emissions are one of the biggest contributors to the increase in child asthma and many other things. I am not making a pro-smoking argument, James. I am making a pro-choice for grown-ups argument, and it's one that I stand by very, very strongly.
On a related matter, Mr Farage, smoking in cars with children will be banned in England under new laws put forward by the government. It'll be put before Parliament. A fine of £50 to people who smoke or fail to prevent another person smoking if there's anyone below the age of 18 in a car.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll ban us smoking in our homes next. It's back to my former comment. Do we need legislation on everything? Do we want the state to be this invasive in our lives? I don't think we do.
But just your view on people, say on a school run, well, it would be late now, but perhaps this afternoon on a school run, should they be smoking with kiddies in the car?
No, they shouldn't, but we don't need legislation to do that. And how on earth would you enforce it? Are we going to have smoke police, pulling cars over to see if... I mean, it's ridiculous. We don't need legislation on every area of our lives. Treat people as grown-ups. And, those parents that are not bringing up their children properly won't be changed by legislation anyway. So I don't actually see the point of it. OK, moving on to James in Bellingham. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Yeah, good, thanks.
All right, no problem. I was wondering to ask you about the Russell Brand incident. You had.
Go on.
I knew Russell Brand a while ago. I mean, I haven't seen him for a long time. But...
This is, of course, I think you refer to Mr Farage and Russell Brand were on Question Time, where they clashed. Russell Brand described you, Nigel Farage, as a pound shop Enoch Powell. You've subsequently told us all that you saw him, I think, having his chest hair waxed or treated before you went on. And then there's been you've continued to sort of trade insults since?
Well, I didn't confront him on the programme quite deliberately, you know, and I wasn't going to turn...
What was that tactic?
I wasn't going to turn this into a sort of ridiculous public punch-up. Yes, I mean, he threw his terms of abuse at me, including the fact that I was against disabled people. I mean, all sorts of stuff. All read out from cue cards. I mean, quite extraordinary. So I tried my best not to get him engaged in fisticuffs with him. I didn't need to, because the audience did. And the audience actually, it was pretty heated, but in the main, I thought it was one of the best question time audiences that I've seen in a very long while.
How many question times have you done?
28.
That must be an all-comers record.
No, Ken Clark's done over 40.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I think Shirley Williams is in the high 50s.
But you're in the top 5, surely?
Yeah,
anyway, you've experienced a lot of question times.
A lot of question times, and I thought that was one where... And some people said Dimbleby lost control. Actually, I think what Dimbleby recognised is here was a very passionate audience who had a lot to contribute and who could perhaps challenge the panel in a way that you don't often see on Question Time. And I think that the audience discomforted members of the panel. I thought it was a very interesting programme. As far as Mr Brown's concerned, I understand when he talks about the disadvantaged and people in Britain not feeling the democratic process represents them. I get that, Russell. What I don't get is this attack on capitalism. It's corporatism that he should be attacking. It's that relationship between major multinationals and government at all levels that he should be attacking.
Are you uncomfortable about that relationship?
Deeply. I mean, I don't think we're living in a capitalist economy. We're living in a corporatist economy, increasingly dominated by the big businesses, where the small man and woman isn't getting an even break and isn't getting a chance. And so I do feel that. But the thing about Brown that really gets me, and I would have said this to him, but again, I didn't need to because a fella in the audience did, is, whipping up all this feeling and then saying, don't vote. I think it's just about the most negative message we can be putting out to our nation's youth. We should be saying, we still live in a democracy and it is within our power to change this by how we vote.
What did you learn about Russell Brand, having spent that amount of time with him in the heat of battle?
That he hasn't got a clearly thought-through political philosophy, and that what he is trying to do, as I say, is to spread negativity amongst the nation's youth. And I would have thought that's just about the last thing that we need.
He went into your trade the other day, didn't he? And unfortunately confronted the wrong person who was denied a hot lunch. I don't know if you remember.
I did. It was the RBS employee outside, wasn't it? Yeah, well, I mean, I know he's made a lot of money, and I know he's got 8 million followers on Twitter or whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, James, tell me, what did you think of the programme?
I thought that he was just, he was, well, any kind of publicity is good publicity. He's got a book coming out for Christmas. All right, so the more...
oh, you cynic, James.
No, it's obvious. It's obvious what he was doing.
You may be right. Listen, thanks very much indeed.
We move on, Mr. Farage.
We do move on, and we move on to Diana in Surbiton. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigel. I just want to ask you one question.
Uh-huh.
Will the national health be safe in your hands? Because it's been asked before the coalition come into Parliament, was asked directly to Mr Cameron, will the national health be safe in your hands?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. However, there is a broader question. Is it at the moment safe in anybody's hands? We have to admit to ourselves that despite the fact over the last 15 years we've pumped in more and more and more and more money, we have to ask ourselves whether the delivery we've got is actually in line with the increase in money. And I have to say, Diana, that everybody I speak to that works within the National Health Service, they all say the same thing. They all say that too little of the money actually reaches the front line and the patients, and that we have a National Health Service that is massively over-bureaucratised, and that it needs, some completely fresh managerial thinking. And I personally think, Diana, we could have more public involvement. I think if we were able to vote for the people that ran our local health authorities, I think we would vote and we would care and we get more accountability. So I am absolutely with the principle that we maintain the principle of the National Health Service that's been there since the late 1940s, that it's free at the point of delivery. But I think we have to examine ways of getting better value for money.
Mr Farage, why is it now that, do you suppose, 4 out of 5 nurses that we're recruiting are from overseas, many from Spain and Portugal, and for whatever reason, young British men and women are either not attracted to or not coming into the profession?
We're not training our own nurses. Worse than that, we now have the worst ratio of GPs per capita of any country in Europe, despite the fact we've seen this huge increase in public spending on the National Health Service. So we're not getting this right, are we? And interestingly, we're taking those nurses, in many cases, away from countries that really, really need qualified nurses.
But wouldn't the standing of UKIP mean we wouldn't be able to get those nurses in? UKIP's stance means we couldn't get them in from Spain, Philippines.
If we need people to come and work in Britain, we can have a flexible work permit policy. Of course we can, but it doesn't get around the point.
No, I appreciate that.
We should be training our own nurses.
But in the interim, you would accept we'd have to wrongly probably bus in nurses from Philippines and wherever.
It's not a question of accept. I've always said that, you know, if you have labour shortages, you use the work permit system. But we should be ashamed of ourselves that we're not training enough nurses or engineers or many other things.
Where do we go now, Mr. Farage?
We go to John, who's calling from Devon. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Farage.
Hi.
Happy Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
I don't think we're pressing the immigration thing as much as we really should. As a UKIP member, I think we should be talking about more global immigration.
Yes.
And also concerning the Commonwealth.
John, I agree with you 100%. We currently have an immigration policy that is skewed on geography. We are pro anyone coming from southern and eastern Europe, regardless of whether they've got a good contribution or not to make to Britain, and we're increasingly turning our backs on India, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, many other parts of the world. I want us to have an ethical immigration policy that doesn't discriminate in terms of geography, but does choose both the quantity and the quality of who comes to Britain. And, John, we can't do that as members of the European Union. And what I want to do is this. I don't want this argument about immigration to go on being a negative. I think we can put a very strong argument up that says once we control our borders, once we know where we are, we can actually have a positive immigration policy that the vast majority of people in Britain will support. And that's the message that you'll hear from me over the next 4.5 months and all the rest of our spokesmen.
Quick response from you, John.
Yeah, could we have a live debate on LBC then with Steve Wolf?
Well,
because I think he would be an ideal candidate to put our case.
Yeah, well, Stephen Wolf is our immigration spokesman. He's got a first-class mind and is a guy of mixed racial background himself. And Stephen is going to be very much in the front line of our campaign over the next few weeks. And I'm sure that if LBC
I look forward to speaking
wanted to have Stephen Wolf and quiz him very closely on the aspects of our immigration policy, I think they'd be impressed.
Right, I look forward to speaking with him. We move on.
Good. We go to Stephen in Eastbourne. Good morning.
Morning, Nigel. Morning, Nick.
Hello, sir.
I understand you're a passionate advocate of grammar schools, that they're the key to social mobility.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if I could get a bit more information from you on that. For example, what will happen to the existing comprehensive schools? Because I'd thought there'd be a change of focus, considering that if the grammar schools came back. And also, will we see a return to the technical colleges we saw in the 1960s?
Well, the one thing I do think we need to do, and we don't necessarily need to build new technical colleges, but I'll tell you one thing we could do, Stephen. We could say to people who are taking at age 16, the key 5 subjects, we could say to them as early as 14 or 15 that they could begin then, on top of the core subjects, to start to do some proper vocational training and get qualifications in those things. And I think if we did that, we might just find there are a few more people who perhaps are not at the top of the academic tree that might find coming to school a bit more interesting. And as far as whether you call them grammar schools or selective schools doesn't really matter. The social mobility gap in Britain is widening with every single year that passes. Good education is increasingly about how wealthy your parents are. And that can't be right, because what we're doing, really, Stephen, is we're wasting a lot of talent in this country, and I want to reverse that.
Quick response from you, Stephen.
There was a further aspect. Basically, the allegation was that the 11 plus discriminated by itself against people from working class backgrounds, the way the questions were structured, things like that. I was wondering how you do that.
Yeah, the current argument against grammar schools is that it's people who live in expensive houses that are now in the catchment area for grammar schools. Well, of course it is, because there are only 164 grammar schools in the country. If we have effectively a grammar or selective school in every town, we start to beat back that problem. I know there are questions about fairness and unfairness, and I understand that. But I would say this, what is really unfair is having a social mobility gap that is growing as widely and as quickly as it is.
What of the 11-year-old who doesn't pass his or her 11 plus as it was, so does not go to the local grammar? Are they written off?
Of course they're not. No, and I think that's ridiculous. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous.
That is the charge, of course.
That is the charge. Of course, Mr. Cameron, he hasn't had to worry too much, has he? You know, because again, like all the main party leaders, he's had the privilege of parents able to afford for a private school education.
You benefited from a private
I've just
school
said that.
Yeah,
I've just made that point. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, nothing we do with this will be 100% fair. Let's be absolutely honest about that. But if we can give people a chance to get on. I mean, look, do you know, the whole of northern Liverpool last year, so we're dealing with an area there of about 300,000 people. Only 5 people went to Oxford and Cambridge. Are we saying that everybody in North Liverpool, are we saying those kids aren't as bright as the rest of the country? Do you know what, Nick? I don't believe that.
Right.
I don't think they're getting the opportunity to get on.
Let me read an email. I haven't done any emails. I need to bring you one. This is from Kenneth in Dartford. After it appears that Vince Cable has cost the country up to £200 million for his botched sale of the Royal Mail, is Vince Cable fit for purpose?
No.
Do you want to expand?
No, not really.
Right. Okay,
he's hopeless. He's hopeless. We've got a Marxist, effectively a Marxist, in charge of the business department who made an absolute pig's ear of the sale of Royal Mail.
All right, we move on to another call. Do you have Sam?
Yes, we do. We got Sam in Nottingham. Good morning.
I think it'll be the last one. Sam, on you go.
Hi there. It seems like every day I read about a UKIP candidate resigning over racism, homophobia, animal cruelty, sexism and the like.
Do you?
So I wanted to ask you, Nigel, do you think you'll be the last man standing come May?
I don't think I read that every day. We've had a case of Kerry Smith, you know, who, yes, he was loutish in what he said and is not fit to be a parliamentary candidate, but I don't think there was anything malicious or evil about what he was trying to do. I haven't heard of any other cases of this for a very, very long time. I really haven't.
Well, this year you had, was it David Sylvester?
Well, you're back to the... You see, now, here we are. You see, now you're doing it now. We are back to the same man who for 20 years was a town councillor for the Conservative Party.
Flooding was down to homosexuality.
But why didn't you ask David Cameron that when he sat in this chair? Because you weren't interested.
Because he's no longer a member of UKIP. Sorry, no longer a Conservative Party.
But when he was a Conservative saying the same things, you weren't interested, were you?
I wasn't made aware of it.
Well, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. All I would say to you, Sam, is this. The idea that UKIP is a one-man band is way back in the dim and distant past. We've got a whole new crop of MEPs, many of whom are performing extremely well. We've won the last 2 parliamentary by-elections with 2 men, Douglas Carswell and Mark Reckless, sitting in Westminster, diligent and working their socks off. And the level of talent in UKIP grows every day. And if I walk out of here and fall under a bus, you know, UKIP is going to be is without doubt going to fight a strong general election campaign. This is no longer just about me.
Presumably you've got to go here and repair a puncture when you get out of here, I imagine. Why are your ratings? Lastly, Ms Farage, your ratings are now at their lowest ever. You are voter dissatisfaction. You've fallen 14%. You're minus 20. Mr Cameron is minus 21, following, it says here, a disastrous month. Are people falling out of love with UKIP?
I'd be slightly cautious about that. That poll was conducted by Ipsos Mori, the same organisation that misread how we were going to do in the European elections, and the same organisation that wildly misread Britain's attitude towards EU membership. Do you remember about 6 weeks ago? There was a big media story. Poll shows Britain's now in favour of staying in the EU. The following fortnight, there were 3 polls that showed by almost 2 to 1 we wanted to leave. So I'm a bit cautious about this. I know that personal ratings are a fickle thing. And that this is a very volatile time that we're in. But what I also know is there was another opinion poll yesterday showing 4 Labour seats that you would think to be safe Labour seats. Great Grimsby, Plymouth Moorview, Rother Valley in Yorkshire and Dudley North in the West Midlands. 4 safe Labour seats where UKIP were within 1% of beating Labour in all of those seats. So my own personal popularity may well go up and down, I'm sure it will, but I think the solid bedrock of support that is there for UKIP looks pretty firm.
So this isn't after a poor month with problems with putative your comments about the M4, various other things, this isn't a result of that?
Well, that was a joke, but I've learned something. Never joke, there's no point, is there? Because
that was it was attempted
humour. No one's got a sense of humour anymore, so there's no point doing that. We've had a difficult couple of weeks.
I have a sense of humour.
We have a difficult...
I will always welcome.
I'll give you that.
I'll always welcome.
We've had a difficult couple of weeks. And I think the reason's pretty obvious. You know, in previous general elections, somebody stood for UKIP. It cost them a great deal of money. It cost them time off work. And the attitude was, well, after you, Charles. I mean, you go first, please, and stand. I'd rather not. And now, in a seat like Basildon, in Essex, where the pollsters say we're probably going to win it, suddenly, there is a big fight going on for people to get it. So we have suffered a bit with some egos. We've suffered a bit with some personal ambition. I don't like it, but it's how people are.
Sorry, where's the ego then?
Well, there are lots of egos floating around. And people,
Neil Hamilton?
People believing, I wouldn't have thought so, would you? And lots of
that
people
was humour, Nigel Farage.
I mustn't do things like that.
The way you winked there, that was humour.
Listen, Neil...
Does Mr Hamilton have an ego?
Neil has been a member of UKIP for, I think, about 12 years. So he is a complete believer in our cause. We've had some battles going on. It's not been the easiest few weeks. I accept that. But do you know what? If you'd said to me in the first week of this year that we'd win the European elections and win 2 by-elections in Westminster, I'd have taken half of that.
Happy New Year to you. The election looming. How do you view the next 6 months, lastly?
I haven't got a clue what's going to happen, and I don't think anyone does, so it's very exciting.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you,
Thanks to you. Nigel Farage appearing here on LBC in Phone Farage, where news is next.
Nigel Farage has defended on LBC a UKIP parliamentary candidate who quit after insulting gay people and people from China. Kerry Smith stood down, saying he was under stress and taking strong painkillers. Party leader Nigel Farage has blamed his comments on his background.
Kerry Smith is a rough diamond. He's a council house boy from the East End of London, left school early, and talks and speaks in a way that a lot of people from that background do.
Mandy Rice Davis, one of the key figures in the 1963